So we want to work on getting our kids to be able to read and understand information and organize it. One of the tasks we have at hand is we have to teach them how to annotate. So this is the annotation guide that we took from Oakland Unified's NGSS, and there are several tasks on this. You're going to need to walk your students through these tasks as you do the reading. So the tasks increase with rigor as you move down. Annotating the title, explain what you know about the subject is not as complex as summarizing. So summarizing what you read. We can also break the tasks into three groups as we're reading. So the first time we read through, we want the kids to kind of just get some ideas about what the article's about. And we can do this by reinforcing, let's come up with some questions while you read. You can do it as a whole group read where you are leading the discussion and having kids read out loud, and then you are responding to them as they're reading out loud. You could also do it as like a partner read where some kids are reading to each other as partners, but you have to model how this is done first. So I'm taking the 8th grade article, airdropping food, and I'm going to walk you through how you could model this for your students using the talking to the text guidelines that they should already have in their notebooks. So airdropping food, that's the title, right? If you use the task annotating the title, you can ask students to take a minute to annotate this. What do they already know about airdropping food? And they can just write it a little bit on the side. If you have this cut out to put in their notebooks, then they can write around it on their notebooks, which is also kind of fun. It's really, really important that you have pictures in there for kids because pictures help our visual learners also understand what's happening. And part of our annotation guide is annotate the pictures, explain drawings, pictures, graphs in your own words. So you could also have kids look at this picture and write down, what do they think is happening? There are some questions that automatically come up for me as a 8th grade student. Maybe, what is UN? I know what UN is as an adult, but thinking from the mind of an 8th grader, what is UN? What is WFP? And those are some questions that they could write on the side. Then you start the reading. Dropping heavy bags of food from the sky is inexpensive and dangerous, but sometimes the only way to do it. So dropping heavy bags of food from the sky is expensive and dangerous, but sometimes the only way to do it is a claim. And if we use our scientific annotations, we say, okay, so that's really important. They're making a claim. I'm going to highlight that. And I'm also going to put those cool brackets around it because that's a claim. And later I want to find evidence that will support the claim, right? So I'm going to make a side note on here. You can have them do this in their Google Drive if you are doing it online. You can have them do it on the paper if you have it in their interactive notebook. So claim, look for evidence, right? This is through the first read. Then you're going to continue. Time is passing and more disaster victims are growing hungry. Maybe is disaster victims a word that I need to look for later? I'm not sure. I'm going to highlight it so that I go back to look at it. Are growing hungry. All the roadways are blocked or washed out, so there's no way to deliver food on the ground. You must take to the air. What questions might students have after reading this? Okay, and then they can add their question to the side. Why can't they get food to disaster victims? Right, that's one question. Maybe, what type of disasters would cause this scenario, right? And then go back and spell it right, because I know that that's not spelled right, but they did not get me. Scenario. All right. It's still not right. Anyway, so those are a couple questions that kids might have. When there's no other way to get food there, we locate an open area to drop the food, says WFP spokesperson Maggie Carrington. Airdrops are the most expensive way to transport food, so they are the last resort. Is that another claim? Right? So I'm going to yellow that. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to bracket it. That looks like another claim. Okay? It's supporting the first claim, but we need to look for evidence. Claim, look for evidence. Okay. They can also be very dangerous. Is that another claim? Highlight, bracket, and then add no. I need to look for evidence for this because there are a lot of claims being made, right? Claim, look for evidence. Look for evidence. Okay. 3 days before scheduled drop, WFP officials secure a drop zone, contact local officials, and warn residents to stay clear of the area. WFP staff on the ground is in radio contact with airplane pilots to ensure the safety during the drop. I have a claim right before that it can be dangerous. The next few sentences that we just read indicate expense and danger. You might not want to give that away to kids right away, but just some foreshadowing for you. If you hit someone with food, they can get seriously hurt or killed. Oh, well, that looks pretty obvious to me, like that is evidence for one of the claims we made, right? So I'm going to underline that. That's evidence, okay? I'm maybe gonna underline that. My computer's not responding for some reason. I'm freezing a little bit. So that evidence, you can ask students, is that evidence for expense or for danger, right? And they should be able to pick out that it's danger. Wow. There we go. So this is evidence for danger, all right? If I were writing this in a notebook, I'd have a little side there. Maybe I'd put E for evidence and then E equals D, danger, something like that. You can talk about it with your kiddos. That's because a sack of food weighs 120 pounds. Packaged in plastic grain bags, WFP rations are triple bagged so they don't explode when they hit the ground. They must survive a 1,600-foot drop from an airplane. Anything dropping 1,600 feet from an airplane, I would say, is dangerous, but let's let the kiddos figure that out. Once on the ground, food supplies are hauled into trucks by local villagers and driven to a nearby warehouse. They are then distributed. This word is already highlighted for them in the article, so that's a vocabulary word they can go ahead and highlight. They are already distributed or given out. Now they gave me my definition right after, or given out by the WFP staff and organizations like CARE and Catholic Charities. So on the side, I've got a vocabulary word, distributed, to give out, and there's my definition, so I've got that later. This phase is closely watched. Survivors must present a registration card, which they receive before to the food drop. Each card contains information about their family, including ages and numbers of children. I might have a question here. How do they get these cards to people? We can't get food there. How are we passing these cards out, right? How are cards given to families? That seems like a logistical question that you can come up with. Okay, to prevent people from getting hurt, in a rush to get food, we try to make sure local villagers have an organized way to distribute the food. Okay, I have a question. Why are people going to get hurt? Why are people rushing to get food, right? Why are people rushing to get food? Why is injury, ignore that, why is injury a valid concern? So those are some questions I have just after my first read through, right? So you do the first read with the kids. Now, maybe we can push them on to the next read. And the next read, Oh gosh, Blair Witch Project again. That means I'm taking too long, right? Okay, lights back on. So that's just going to be the first read. Then you can go back and talk about things. Now we have come up with some various claims, right? You want the kids to look for evidence this next time through. So we have a claim. We claim that dropping food is dangerous, and we claim that it's the most expensive way to deliver food, right? So what evidence do we have to support that? And as they read through again, they're going to look for evidence. And everywhere where they wrote claim, look for evidence, they can add the evidence into that spot. So airdrops are the most expensive way to transport food, so they are the last resort. What evidence do we have that supports that airdropping food is expensive? Okay, that's what we're looking for this time around. Time is passing, and more disaster victims are growing hungry. All the roadways are blocked or washed out, so there's no way to deliver food in the ground. You must take to the air. When there's no way to get food there, we locate an open area where to drop the food, says the spokesperson. Airdrops are the most expensive way to transport food, so they're the last resort. Do I have any evidence yet about why airdropping food is so expensive? You could maybe infer that if they can't find an open area, maybe it's a jungle area that was hit by a disaster, you can infer that maybe they have to clear space. So then you have people who have to clear space. But the actual evidence for that isn't there. We don't know for sure if that's an added expense or if that's considered in the expenses, right? They can also be very dangerous. 3 days before the scheduled drop, WFP officials secure a drop zone. So you have people working to secure a drop zone. People securing drop zone. That means you're paying for people. That's an expense, right? And warn residents to stay clear. People warning residents, right? Then you have WFP staff on the ground. WFP ground staff. They're expensive. You are paying for an airplane, right? And everything that comes with an airplane, the gas, the maintenance, all of that. You're also paying for an airplane pilot. As much as we want people to do things out of the goodness of their hearts, everyone needs to get paid too. So you're paying for that airplane pilot as well. If you hit someone with food, they could get seriously hurt or killed. That's because a single stack of food weighs 120 pounds, packaged in plastic grain bags. WFP rations are triple bagged. So now I'm using extra resources to protect food being dropped. That's more money. If I can drive it and I don't have to triple bag it because it doesn't have to withstand a 1,600-foot drop from a plane, right? Once on the ground, food supplies are hauled onto trucks by local villagers. So now I've got trucks on site and people driving food to needed area. That's another expense, right? To a nearby warehouse. I have warehouse, storage, and distribution. Warehouse, storage, and distribution. Okay. All of that is an added expense. Okay. This phase is closely watched. Survivors must present registration cards. So that also means that somebody had to create registration cards for survivors, right? Distribute registration cards. That's another expense. Somebody's doing that. Each card contains information about their families, including ages and number of children. To prevent people from getting hurt, we try to make sure local villagers have an organized way to distribute food. So all of those pieces that we just mentioned, right? Those are all expenses. We're talking about why is this so expensive? The next thing they were supposed to look for is